Hello and welcome to the Insights Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Parnett. Since 2006, I've been working in the realm of emotional fitness. Emotional fitness is about transforming our relationship with uncertainty so we're better prepared to handle the inevitable challenges and pressures and stresses that life brings. We get to explore in this podcast series what impacts our relationships, what inspires our actions, and what influences all of our decision making. We also gain clarity on what matters most, what matters least, and what brings us joy in this life. Join me on this journey from ambition to meaning as we explore deeply every nook and every cranny of emotional fitness. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to embarking on this adventure with you. Hey everyone, it's Joe Parnett here. Welcome to episode 107 of Insights. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Remember to subscribe and click the notifications so that way you'll receive instant notification when new episodes of Insights comes out. And also, we regularly run free public events, masterclasses that we run on Zoom in the areas of emotional fitness and behavioral profiling. And if you're curious about those two subjects and you want to come along to one of those classes, make sure you have notifications and subscribe here so that way you can receive the notification of when that's actually on. All right, so today's session, today's insight, today's podcast, we're going to be focusing on what would change in our lives if we were to replace all judgment with curiosity. What would that give us? What would be the gift that curiosity would bring to ourselves, to the world, to our relationships, to our connections? What would change? This particular subject of replacing judgment with curiosity was immensely inspired by a coaching conversation I had in a live demonstration I was performing only about 5 days ago, as of the time of this recording, with a member of my emotional fitness community. In that particular conversation, this young lady was still caught up in some very difficult experiences that she had in the past with family members and a couple other things that had happened. And what we discovered in that conversation was the one thing that was keeping her trapped in the past was her judgment. Not her judgments of family members or judgments of others, but judgment of herself. And the judgment of herself had carried over into the current time, which still kept her trapped in the grief that was associated with these particular experiences. In fact, I can go as far as to say that judgment is one of the significant contributors that prevents us from progressing in any area of our life that matters, from progressing to become the man or the woman that we're destined to become. Judgment puts a block between us and love, us and connection. It's us and contribution. It really is not a very good thing. Now, however, judgment does exist for some resourceful, positive reasons. So what I mean by that is that when we think of the ego, now there are many different definitions of the ego. My personal definition of the ego is that the ego is a survival mechanism, primordially, like it is a fundamental survival mechanism that is designed to keep us alive, to protect us from real dangers. And we need judgment in order to assess or judge how fast our car, or do we need to slow our car down in traffic in order to navigate some situation? Judging whether we need to move away from the stranger that's walking right behind us on the footpath that's giving us bad vibes. It's judging in terms of the vibe that other people give off to us. Am I making sense? So it has its place, because judgment in its resourceful way, in its positive way, can contribute to our effectiveness in terms of meeting our needs of the ego, which is fundamentally, as I said, is a survival mechanism. However, most judgments that we experience in our life are actually unresourceful judgments. The judgment of others, the judgment of what people are saying, the judgment of why this person married this person, the judgment of other people's careers. There's a whole bunch of different things that we can look at in terms of judgment. But the most potent of all judgments is the judgment that we cast on ourselves. And this particular young lady had fallen victim to her own thinking, which was about the judgments that she had casted for years and years on herself based on the meaning that she had given these experiences in her past. And what we discovered in our coaching conversation was something really powerful. And that is that what would transform or shift or change if we were to replace all judgments with curiosity. And I've got a whole bunch of wonderful things I want to share with you in terms of what that brings. First and foremost, being more curious rather than judgmental opens the door to progress. Because what this does is, by being curious, we become more open and more expansive in our awareness in terms of opportunities. And by opportunities, I don't mean becoming opportunistic. What I mean by opportunity is the opportunity to share something with someone that can help them, the opportunity to share some truth that can positively impact and share love and kindness with another person. The opportunity to expand your business in ways that adds even more value to your market or to your consumer base or to your clients. Does that make sense? There's all kinds of things that curiosity does around that. And one thing I shared that we discovered with this particular lady that I was just referring to is that what we discovered there was that curiosity not only led to progress, but the progress that arose in her because of the curiosity also leads to joy. Because I love the words of Earl Nightingale, who to me encapsulated the most complete definition of success that I know. And that is that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And the most important word there is the word progressive. Without progress, you can't succeed. Without progress, it is impossible to experience any kind of fulfillment or even happiness or joy. To me, progress happens more efficiently and more consistently and more free-flowing if we embrace curiosity. Now, here's some of the other gifts. I've written these down because I've thoroughly thought about this in terms of other gifts that curiosity can bring into our lives and into the lives of those around us. So by embracing curiosity, we would also become more compassionately appreciative of where people are coming from. Now, when we're more compassionately appreciative of where people are coming from, because that would mean that we have a deeper understanding or a deeper connection with others. Because if I have a compassionate appreciation of where someone's coming from and I'm curious, I'm going to be asking different questions or having a different conversation with that friend versus just having a conversation with the judgments going on in my head. So having a compassionately appreciative position when communicating with anyone, whether it's communicating with your team, whether it's communicating with your wife, your husband, your mate, whoever it is that what curiosity does is that it brings that special sense of appreciation where, as I said, the conversation runs deeper, where there's questions that will arise that don't exist in the space of judgment. If you can think of judgment and curiosity as two separate radio stations, you can't tune into both at the same time. Judgment FM produces a certain type of vibe, a certain type of communication, a certain type of conversation, a certain type of relationship. It's actually quite ordinary. It's full of gossip mongering. It's full of water cooler talk. It's full of, like if we spend more time talking about other people and their business than we do talking about ideas and dreams and things we want to, experience, if we spend more time doing the people thing, talking about other people's business, I think that's going to impact our lives in ways that we don't even necessarily know, because the accumulative effect of that really drags our energy down. And it's an entirely different thing. It's like if you were listening to talkback radio versus, classical music FM. Both stations are going to be vastly different experiences, and that's obvious. But what's not obvious is the effect that these two different radio stations will have on an accumulative level over the course of the day in the mood that we have, because both stations will cause us to focus on different things. So if we're tuned into Curiosity FM, we cannot be tuned into Judgment FM. So Curiosity FM, I believe, nudges us further closer toward becoming unconditionally loving, rather than judgments. Most judgments, not all, but most judgments throw us the other way. They move us more toward fear. Here are some other gifts that curiosity will bring into our lives. We would spend less time talking about others. I'm just reading off my list here. I've already just mentioned that, but let me just say that again. We would spend less time talking about others and spending more time talking about ideas, talking about things that inspire us. Have you ever had a fascinating conversation about a subject that you knew little about and were educated in the process because of what the other person knew about this subject? Isn't that a beautiful conversation to have? Or the exchange of ideas, or the exchange of thoughts on hypothetical situations or challenges that have been overcome, rather than talking about other people's business and other people's lives and what's going on for them. Massive difference in how that would feel. Another gift that curiosity would bring us is we would no longer waste precious life energy on gossip and what simply is none of our business. I think we've covered that pretty well. We would also become kinder and more patient with ourselves. In embracing curiosity, we become more kinder and patient with ourselves. And what this means is that instead of wasting time beating ourselves up, have you done that? I've done that. We've all done that, I think, on some level, where we might be experiencing some kind of disappointment and we beat ourselves up over how we could have done better, or, gee, what kind of an idiot was I saying that, or why did I do that? Instead of tuning into all of that garbage, we're tuning into becoming more compassionately appreciative of ourselves, more kinder and patient with ourselves. That changes everything. Changes the way that we feel about ourselves and our place in the world. I love this one. One of the other fundamental gifts of curiosity. By replacing all of our judgments with curiosity, we would find it much easier to continue to expand our comfort zone. Expanding our comfort zone is very different to getting out of our comfort zone. Whilst getting out of our comfort zone has got its benefits, it's not sustainable. You can't be doing things to get out of your comfort zone on a daily basis. It would just energetically be too much. But if we were to continue to expand our comfort zone every day, that would change everything. By expanding our comfort zone, it means we're growing. We might not be growing as fast as getting out of our comfort. Like by getting out of our comfort zone and experiencing something extreme, we experience a boost to our growth. But if we're expanding our comfort zone, we're growing like the grass is growing out there every day. We can't see it growing, but if we come back 2 or 3 weeks later, or a month later, it's obvious that it's grown. That's the difference between expanding comfort zone where you can't see it every day, but there's sustainable growth, versus getting out of our comfort zone where something grows really fast, but we can't do that every day because of the energy that it takes. So curiosity is what would actually expand our comfort zone even more easily, because we would be noticing different ways of being. By being patient and more kind and more compassionately appreciative of other people, that opens up conversation pieces that would not have opened if we were full of judgment. And therefore, we get to grow as people together. I love that. This is another gift of curiosity. We would fall deeper in love with ourselves and all those around us. I love that. What a wonderful gift that would be. And I'm going to circle back to that one in a moment. This other one is a beauty. One of the other gifts of curiosity is that kindness would become our default position, which means that whatever situation we find ourselves in traffic, at the shops, writing an email, recording a podcast, whatever it might be, that we would be kind to ourselves as a default. So, for example, the recording of this particular episode, I recorded this episode and the sound came out all really, really bad. And this is my 5th attempt at recording this episode. Now, by being kind to myself, rather than letting myself go off the handle with frustration, it's enabled me to record this right now here today, rather than delaying it another day or two because I was being all frustrated with myself and carrying on like the proverbial pork chop. Does that make sense? So kindness becoming our default position, what a wonderful gift that is in terms of what it brings to our spirit and to our ability to navigate uncertainty with more direction and clarity because we're being kind to ourselves. We will become more attentive and present to whatever's going on in our lives and more attentive and present to a conversation that we're having. Have you ever noticed how annoying it is when you're talking to a good friend and you realize that they haven't been listening to you, or that the nature of their questions is evidence that they haven't heard a thing you've just said, or they've only captured the 10% of what you've just shared? It feels disrespectful. It just feels awful. But on the other hand, if someone is completely attentive and present to your conversation, that can change everything in terms of the level of depth of connection that you have with that person. I'm sure you agree. Just very quickly, before I continue on with more gifts that curiosity brings us, please remember to subscribe and press notifications on, because that way you'll receive instant notification when these new episodes come out, and you'll also receive notification when we're running our next free public event training, focusing on the areas of emotional fitness, and we run also trainings in behavioral profiling. So if you're curious about those subject areas and you want to come along to the next free training, the next free masterclass, turn on notifications, and please press subscribe. And that would mean that you will receive notifications from us. I hope that helps. All right. So becoming attentive and present to the people around us would make a massive difference to the level of depth of connection that we have with the people around us. That depth of connection also breeds a deeper sense of trust. And trust is everything. I'm sure you'll agree. Oh, I love this one. One of the other gifts of curiosity is that we would no longer linger in the shadows of our past or the shadows of our history, because judgment, as I mentioned earlier, judgment is what keeps us in the past. Love that one. We would replace our need to be happy by replacing it with the state of becoming fulfilled, and fulfillment becomes a priority over being happy. Happiness is often driven by external factors, whereas fulfillment comes from within, regardless of external factors. Very, very different psychological position that you'd find yourself in. Curiosity would also give us the gift of being able to connect more deeply and contribute more value, as I've already shared. And I love this one. Curiosity leads to progress, which leads to joy, which is what I opened this conversation with. So let me leave you with this question, What would change for you if you were to replace judgment with curiosity? It's simple to do. Sometimes it's difficult to do, especially if we're being triggered. If we're in a situation where we're reacting emotionally to something that's happened out there, it can be difficult to replace our judgments in that moment with curiosity. But most of the day, we spend most of our day not being triggered. So do the best you can with awareness to bring more curiosity into whatever you're experiencing in your life, from making a cup of coffee to running a meeting to delivering a workshop to whatever it is that you're doing with your day. Curiosity is king. It really is. And bringing that childlike wonder really changes our connection with the world, the connection with the people around us, the connection with the people that we're serving, the connection with the people that we're hanging out with. Makes a massive difference. And ultimately, I believe that what curiosity does, it massively adds to our progress of having a deep level of peace. I can't speak highly enough of the importance, and this is probably another conversation for another Insights episode. I value very highly having peace of mind. I think that when we have a peace of mind, we become so much more effective and joyous and loving and kind and patient, all those wonderful things I've already shared with you in this podcast episode, that I think that's what that would bring is that curiosity ultimately brings us to having peace of mind. And remember that curiosity contributes to our growth by expanding our comfort zone on a daily basis. Hope you enjoyed this conversation. Share this with people that you believe would get value. If you're resonating, of course, with the Insights podcast, please share it with other people that would love to, that you think would get value from these short conversations. So I designed these conversations originally to be, 20 minutes or less, figuring that you can have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and enjoy some value here, hopefully. And by the end of that cup of coffee, you've learned something about yourself or life and love and good things that make a difference. So thanks so much for tuning in. Really, really appreciate it. Looking forward to reconnecting in episode 108 coming up very soon. And as I mentioned just before, please remember to press subscribe, turn on notifications, and that way you'll receive the notifications of these episodes. And of course, those masterclass free trainings that we run in the realm of emotional fitness and behavioral profiling that we run reasonably regularly throughout the year. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye for now. I trust you enjoyed this latest episode of the Insights podcast and received great value. Please remember to subscribe and share your reviews, and I'll see you again very soon.